I think having that core group of dual lands, fetch lands, force of will, wasteland,
Yep.
you can come up with something.
Yeah.
You can definitely even take your modern deck and bump it up a notch if you've got Delver. That can really get ported into that very effectively. So that's my advice to everyone. If you really love Legacy, just, when you see a dual land, trade for it and just slowly move towards that. And certainly stores like TJ's Gaming, etc. As I look around this room, they have the cards. It's just a question of whether or not you want to convert the cards that are in your binder not doing anything into something that can long term really play off.
Yeah, it makes sense. Something that'll actually hold its value, unlike, say, your standard cards that you may have lying around. I have 4 Hazarets. That card spiked after this Pro Tour. I'm definitely getting rid of those. Maybe picked up some Collective Brutality, some cards that are a little more modern, Legacy playable.
Yeah, no, I mean, that Collective Brutality card, I had to read it. I was playing against, I believe it was Gil's Black Red Reanimator deck.
Okay.
And it was a beating.
Yeah, it's a nice card.
Those modes, they all were relevant at the time, and there's a lot of power there. So yeah, there are certainly cards in Standard that'll translate into those Eternal matchups as well.
But now we got Modern. Sam Richardson not going to be taking any breaks. He's right back on the horse for the quarterfinals. He is already qualified for the Titanium Plus, so is now just fighting for that 1-round bye and the cash money. He's playing against Brandon Smith, who we saw in the top 8, the first quarterfinal. This is going to be interesting because we have that Delver strategy that you're talking about, really hyper-efficient spells, 1-mana spells that function as really more than that with the Delve creatures. He's playing against blue-white control, trying to keep him honest here.
I like this list. This looks very Legacy-ish. It's got the Delvers, the Snapcasters, Pyromancer. I've sleeved up Tassiger before. Gurmag Angler is a perennial player now. He's essentially just a 1-mana 5/5. And I would imagine he's probably better in Modern given the lack of ways of really bouncing him. Jace the Mind Sculptor is the type of card where you bounce a 5 Gurmag Angler, and how many cards can they possibly delve? Like, at some point they're running out of cards,
right,
and using that resource. So it really does make it difficult to keep recasting him. Yeah, there are a lot of very solid Eternal cards on here.
Yeah, the entire converted mana cost of Brandon's deck, if you take the Gurmag and the Tassiger as 1-drops, very low, almost Legacy levels. On the other hand, Sam Richardson's playing 5-drops. So we'll see if power or efficiency wins this one.
We started out with a Delver, which is where you really want to be, but not flipped.
Yep, harder to flip this one in Modern than it is in Legacy. You don't have the upkeep Brainstorms, you don't have the Ponders, you don't have the Preordains. Instead, kind of have to do it raw.
Just a high density of instants and sorceries, and just cross your fingers.
Maybe a Serum Visions. So Sam was on the play. He was the first seed. Had to play out round 7. Ended the day without a loss yesterday. Still has no loss. He's trying to win the tournament without anyone defeating him.
Now, what's interesting as a Legacy player is I'm looking at Brandon's list here. I don't see any type of mana disruption, do I? Is there anything in here? No tectonic edges? Do I see any? We've got a counter spell and mana leak, but yeah, there's no way of really going after a control deck's mana base. So that is a big distinction in between Legacy and Modern here. When you see a Delver strategy in Legacy, they're able to simultaneously attack the opposing mana base and play at that really low level.
Right.
So that is very different. This has me a little concerned for the Delver player there, given that Sam's going to be able to develop his mana base and be able to play spells like Supreme Verdict and his creature removal, really unhindered, as long as he can force them through.
It's true. The closest option we have in Modern, Tectonic Edge and Ghost Quarter, which both have their downsides, right? The Tech Edge, the opponent has to have 4 lands and costs an additional mana, while the Ghost Quarter obviously puts you down an entire mana yourself. It doesn't actually set them back. No Price of Progress, not a legal card. think it'd be pretty brutal to the format if it was. The burn deck's already really good.
Yeah, it's tough to fetch a shock land and then have to answer Price of Progress later. That's you've already been punished enough.
Yeah, exactly. Another Colonnade.
Oh, wow. Using a little bit of card selection that Delver provides. Big fan of that. Using a fetch land to get rid of a card that you're not happy to draw.
Yeah, tight play from Brandon Smith. He clearly knows this deck. I mean, if your opponent goes foil Fuller Island into foil Delver, you're already pretty sure he knows his deck. But this is just proof.
And a fresh card, which looks like a foil Serum Visions.
Yep.
Still chipping away for one. This would have been a very, very different game state had that Delver flipped early. He is just got to persevere, considering his mana. And we've got the Pyromancer.
Definitely better in Legacy than it is in Modern. The Pyromancer in Modern has no Gitaxian Probe to work with. It has no Daze. It has no Force of Will. So really just providing tertiary beatdowns, one of in this deck.
Cabal Therapy is my favorite with young Pyromancer. The ability to play it and then flash it back immediately is backbreaking.
Yeah.
He immediately getting value out of this young Pyromancer. It's nice to see. And it looks like another Serum Visions on top. Couldn't see the top card. But it looks like this Pyromancer is going to just continue generating tokens. Supreme Verdict, probably the best answer I would imagine from here.
Yeah, he could wait one more turn, but that seems greedy to me. And Sam agrees. He just pulls the trigger. Bins the creatures.
And the digging continues. We've got a Cryptic Command. Looks like we've got a bunch of creature removal.
Yeah, Brandon just dig, but the downside of the blue card selection in Modern means that he's gone through 3 of his 4 Serum Visions. So the later this game goes, the less and less library manipulation he's going to have. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. The Gideon Jura. Gideon Jura resolves and says, all of your creatures, Brandon Smith, must attack Gideon Jura if able next turn.
It's an interesting play there.
Yeah. Huh.
There was no Serum Vision setting that up. That was...
Yeah, I'm not sure why he milled Sam Richardson. Seems like milling the deck that has Snapcaster Mage in it, not the best play. And when you have Delve creatures, not the best play, but that's what he does. Interesting.
He may have had a card that he was keeping on top with his own Serum Visions that he wanted to preserve there.
Sure. Yeah, this makes sense.
That is the only reason I can think of.
It's funny, the control deck with the Spreading Seas has more mana disruption than the aggressive Grixis Delver deck. As we see Sam draw the Spreading Seas. Not very impactful here.
I believe I did play Standard at the time that was legal. Refresh my memory here. That's going to make it an island and draw a card?
Exactly. So it makes it an island permanently, loses all other abilities, and it draws a card.
So really an exceptional answer to a card like Colonnade.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the mana bases in Modern are stretched so thin because there is no Wasteland. There is no Daze, that the Spreading Seas functionally is just land destruction a lot of the time, like against a burn deck, against an affinity deck, against a deck with creature lands.
Cantripping Stone Rain is appealing.
Yeah. And look at this, Gideon in for 6. Sam says, I don't fear no terminate. Probably because, there are only 3 of them in Brandon's deck. And he's likely to bottom that card with Serum Visions. Oof. And this is a newcomer to the scene. This is an Eldritch Moon card. Blessed Alliance. Escalate card, attempting to make Brandon Smith sack an attacking creature and have Sam gain 4 life. We'll see if it resolves.
Drawing a cryptic command. Gideon can take a hit to the teeth with Gurmag and stick around, but not the lightning bolts. That is a pretty significant swing there.
Yeah, that's pretty good. The fact that Brandon didn't have to trade 2 cards for the powerful Planeswalker, definitely huge. And you see Sam with this Colonnade there. He's thinking about it. He's like, oh, this guy only has 2 Fatal Push, and he would have bottomed it with Serum Visions. Can I afford to attack? Guess the answer is yes.
Got the filter land there.
Mystic Gate coming down.
Keeping his mana base building. Still has a lot of life.
And while pretty unlucky for Brandon, he draws Terminate the turn after he deals with Gideon Jura. I'm really impressed with Sam's play here throughout yesterday and in this top 8. Really aggressive play, which is something that blue-white players are not usually known for. It's so easy with these decks to sit back and accrue an advantage, but he knows when to go for it. He did it last game. He did it in round 4 or 5 when we saw him yesterday. And he's doing it this game too. I mean, he's attacking with the Colonnade. He attacks when Brandon doesn't have it. He doesn't attack when Brandon could have the Terminate this turn. Just really, really good play.
This game threatens to be over here in between the Delver, Gurmag, and that Lightning Bolt. That will be 11.
Yep, we'll see if Sam can disrupt this play pattern here. He has Mana Leak, he has Wall of Omens, and he has Cryptic, so he can cast either Wall and Mana Leak or Cryptic. But not all 3.
Difficult decision. It's going to be difficult to protect a Colonnade with a Cryptic command as well. That is a lot of mana.
Yeah, it is. So Wall into land. He would have loved that to be an untapped land, but he'll have to settle for a Colonnade. Only Mana Leak. Three mana.
Hogan's command is something that can be mana leaked.
Yep. Sam has to feel pretty lucky right now that he got a card out of that Mana Leak with this many lands on the battlefield.
And it looks like we're going to terminate and bolt for the win here. Can push that wall aside, swing with that Delver, who finally flips.
Bzz. That's a bolt. So congratulations to Brandon Smith taking down Game 1 with no mana disruption.
Yeah, Sam was continually building his mana base, but really didn't have the the ability to deal with the angler and the delver and deal with the stack all at once. I mean, that was...
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think he missed a land drop the entire game, and yet he still ended up with the cryptic command in hand that he couldn't cast. Now, if he could have just cast that cryptic command, could have, say, bounced an angler, countered a bolt, something like that, and he still would have been in the game. He could have drawn a Sphinx's Revelation, could have blocked with a Colonnade. So even through no mana disruption from Brandon Smith, he still doesn't have the mana to cast all his spells. So you can see Modern is a much more mana-intensive format than something like Legacy.
And what do we lost the list here. So what are some of the common sideboard adjustments that you see? I'd imagine Brandon is going to be looking to get rid of some of his dead creature removal. Sam seems like he's kind of built the deck to deal with a Grixis strategy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Brandon going to be siding out, like you said, maybe some of his Terminates, his Fatal Pushes. You have to keep in a few to respect the power of Gideon Creature or Celestial Colonnade, but he'll be siding out most of them. Maybe siding in things like Dispel to win the counter war. 1 mana counter King there. Siding in things like Hand Disruption, maybe Collective Brutality, one of the only cards that can stop Supreme Verdict preemptively. But really, I think his deck is well set up to beat a blue-white deck. He has the Disruption. He has the card manipulation. He has the cheap threats with the counter magic to back it up. And there you can see Sam's sideboard package. He's thinking about creatures. He's thinking about Cliques and Geists and Dispels.
Now, dropping game 1 in a tournament setting, the Swiss rounds, that can be a bit more of an issue, certainly in Legacy, regarding the clock. Here in the top 8, I'd imagine Sam is fairly comfortable. You don't want to lose game 1, but it's not like you're playing against your opponent and the clock here. You just need to win the next 2.
Right. These rounds are untimed. A proper pace of play is going to be maintained by the table judge, of course. You can't take 5 minutes for every decision. But the fact that we have all morning to play the top 8, we don't have an entire 150 people, 200 people waiting on these guys to finish their control mirror or what have you, means that they can take their time.
That's probably one of the earlier kind of revelations that I had as I was developing as a Magic player, is that winning tournaments is an actually distinct skill set from being good at Magic.
Oh, interesting.
You know, especially in Vintage, there would be matches where you're almost always drawing live. Like, if there are cards you can draw, Ancestral Recall, into Time Walk, into Yawgmoth's Will with double manager. Like, there's things that can happen that can turn a game around. However, you'd concede those games because maybe you're 10% to win.
Okay.
But the beginning of the game, you're favored. Like, let's say that after sideboarding, you're favored in that matchup, and you have 2 more games that you want to win. A weaker player may decide to try to hang on to that small percentage, and then they easily win the next game, and then they draw, and they curse their luck. And it's like, what you needed to do is you needed to concede and then move on to the next 2. And that was something that really kind of improved my percentages in tournaments, is the ability to let go of kind of low percentage games and just go on, and you're prepared games 2 and 3 with your sideboard. Give yourself the chance. And certainly when Miracles was in the format, that was something that I noticed as well, is other Miracle players at the end of the tournament, it'd be like, I feel like you have a good grasp of the format. Why did you end up with 2 draws?
I see.
And it was because they were down game 1 in a situation where they really just hung on for no reason. And they were just out of it. They didn't have a counterbalance lock, and that was that.
Yeah, they're thinking, if I draw Terminus into Brainstorm, which gets me the 2 cards I need, and this and that, well, pretty low percentage, like you said.
And it did actually go both ways in terms of people playing against Miracles where they hung on too long, and they could have conceded because their opponent had counterbalance and top down, and of course the Miracles player is going to be fine taking 40 minutes. But you got 10 minutes to beat them, it's not going to happen. Right. So they win that first game, not slow playing, just, it takes forever to find their retreat. So yeah, I think the distinction in between just being a good Magic player and understanding the realities of the tournament setting is something that's lost on a lot of people, and it's really one of those things that we can do to kind of improve, is to really understand the matchups in the context of how long you really need to be able to beat your opponents. And when playtesting, how many people do you see actually set up a timer so they can actually understand? Like, they rarely do people actually have a little clock where they can see. It's like, oh, you know what? These matchups, on average, my Delver matches versus a control list, when I'm winning, are taking 12 to 18 minutes.
Yeah, never. I've been playing Magic for 20 years. I've never done that.
Yeah, it gives a huge difference, the ability to do that. And then, in terms of controlling the clock, then that's the next step, is telling your opponent gently, saying like, hey, we should have time to finish 3 matches. Yeah. Like, I understand that Magic's a hard game, but let's go. And you can push that as hard as you want. In my old age and doing a lot of dealing and representing Wormwood, I'm not as harsh as I have been in the past.
Sure.
There would be plenty of matchups where I would look right at my opponent and say, the time for thinking about that was at home. Like, you really need,
bringing the fire.
Really need to be sure. If you're making a doomsday pile, you don't have time to write a book about it.
Right.
Let's go.
Right. Your name's not Steve here.
Yeah. Yeah, Gifts Ungiven was another card like that where people would just agonize over, and it's like, that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, you really need to be able to make this decision.
So here we go. We're into game 2. The players took a while to sideboard, and in matchups where you're going to see a big percentage of your deck, it makes sense. Every one sideboard decision does matter a lot.
Let's see if we're opening on Delver. I got to imagine Brandon's percentage is much higher when he's opening with a threat.
Right. I mean, that game that's
a different kind of threat.
Yeah.
That is a different kind of threat. And Sam's certainly not going to be able to close the game out before that. So there's going to be a counter battle looming.
Yeah, and this is what the dispels are for. Of course, Ancestral Vision of Sorcery. So not directly counterable by Dispel, but the ensuing counter battle may be fought.
That is a eternal power level card, if there ever was one. Drawing 3 cards is certainly enough to break any type of blue matchup. Of course, when you're able to draw into more of them, that just continually compounds the difficulty.
Right. Now, it's a little out of character for the blue-white control deck to be the beatdown, but anytime your opponent suspends an Ancestral Visions, you have to try. You have to try and put some type of pressure on them, whether it's mana pressure, hand pressure, life total pressure, something.
Looks like he's keeping the 2 there. And speculate that they may just be capable of stopping that Ancestral Visions.
Mm-hmm.
Creeping Tar Pit. That keeps a lot of Planeswalkers in check in Legacy. Very difficult to deal with.
So you may be able to hear in the background, you may not. Our Legacy Challenge is just about to get underway here. The players are finishing the deck list, handing them in. We will be joining that tournament in round 2. And that's where I'll be lost, and I'll be asking you the questions.
The mana bases are much easier to understand.
Yeah.
I will say, as I'm seeing these cards in between the expeditions and all of the different choices, I think it's a kind of a bug and a feature of Modern is that the mana bases aren't cookie cutter.
Right.
You really have to make those decisions and test and see filter land, shock land, Innistrad, I don't even know what you guys call them.
Fast lands.
Fast lands, there you go. Yeah, all of these cards that are certainly not Underground Sea, but you got to cast your spells.
So Sam Richardson, not what he wanted. His Supreme Will got remanded, so he cast it during his main phase, just looking for land, looking for a second white source. And you have to wonder if his double top Serum Visions maybe should have been done differently.
Wow. Pyromancer right before... Oh, and we've got a path. Very interesting. Can assume that there was nothing that Brandon wanted to cast after.
Surprising.
That was almost played like a counter spell. I wonder if that was rushed.
There's something to be said, too, for emptying your hand right before the Ancestral Visions goes off. Force the answers out of your opponent. But yeah, that is a little questionable. Not even a remand, not even getting a single token out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can just play your Serum Visions if you have it there, just because you retain priority. So
Right.
there's the Gideon. Looks like really just abandoning the fight over this Ancestral Visions.
Yeah, Sam not actually well set up to fight against it. He doesn't have remands in his deck. Here we go.
It's like a 0-mana Ancestral Recall at that point.
Yeah.
Really leaves you open to defend it if you need to, but that was totally uncontested. He has a full grip.
9 cards in hand. He'll hit a land drop. He'll deploy a threat and end the turn with at least 6 or 7 cards in his hand. Brandon Smith definitely has to be favored here. One more game win and he moves on to the finals, earns a spot in the Titanium Invitational coming up at the end of the year or early in 2018. That's a $5,000 cash tournament that's invite only. Only going to invite 24 players. Sam Richardson already qualified.
It looks like Sam has multiple Planeswalkers. It looks like a Jace and another Gideon. Is that what you're seeing here? So it seems like he has a lot of threats versus a full grip of cards.
Yeah, he's missing land drops though, and that is not good when you have Sphinx's Revelation in your hand. Here we go, pre-combat. He's going to go for a Planeswalker.
So it looks like the Gideon is going to be able to protect from the creeping tar pit. The Jace, that makes threats hit weaker, correct? Why don't you break that down for me? Because these are not some legacy cards here. That's the Ravnica, Return to Ravnica Jace, correct?
It is. This is the Architect of Thought. His plus ability protects himself. He says, all attacking creatures get -1/-0, but it's not even going to hit the battlefield. It gets countered, the Gideon gets bounced.
That is a huge swing right there. It was looking like things could possibly stabilize, and instead, empty board, just 5 lands, Tasigur crashing in. That is a huge swing. Power of Cryptic Command really on display there.
Yeah, this is brutal. I don't want to say this game was unwinnable for Sam from the start, but it didn't look good. I mean, Ancestral Vision, a hard card for him to deal with.
Are we going to see a Snapcaster Cryptic Command here? That is brutal. I've played that in Legacy. I'm not going to lie. Cryptic Command with Snapcaster is just backbreaking.
6 mana plays are viable in Legacy?
They can be as a one-of. It's a nice silver bullet to have in your hand, especially when you can back it up with cards like Force of Will.
Right. The eternal argument for any blue card in Legacy is, well, it pitches the Force of Will.
It holds true. You
can put it back with Brainstorm.
It is very true. And now, it helps flip your Delver as well, if that's the type of deck you're playing. And Brainstorm does allow you to put back a lot of kind of situational cards. It's certainly a strength of the format. But here, we just have a lot of powerful cards that have come together to give Brandon a real lead. That Wall of Omens is going to slow things down just a bit. Can be a speed bump for Tasigur, or can kind of block the Snapcaster indefinitely.
Yeah, this one's all over but the crying, it looks like. Wall of Omens will soak 2.
So it looks like he's going to be able to survive 2 more turns unless some creature removal comes into play. Creeping Tar Pit and Tasigur coming in for 7 total.
Just a few points of burn away. Gideon will attempt to resolve. I mean, look at all these cards in Brandon's hand. Ugh, brutal. Counter Squall. Counters the spell and deals Sam 2 damage. Brings him to 6.
And that 2 damage shortens the clock. Verdict. Creeping Tar Pit is a threat here that will get in. But he does have access to Ghost Quarter here.
Yep, so only going to hit once. Bring Sam to 3. Any Lightning Bolt drawn at any point in the game will do it, but none yet.
Look, perhaps like a Tectonic Edge drawn for turn. Mana base developing feels just a bit too late. He is just hanging on the edge at 3 life. And Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, that's got to be the play here for Sam. Just the Doug Flutie. Here we go. Can he resolve a Sphinx's Rev? I mean, at this point, you just tap out and go for X equals 5. You're so far behind, you might need all 5 cards.
And
Ooh.
the spell.
8 mana spell countered by 1 mana spell. So it goes. And Sam, not much he could have done that game. I'm sure he will go back and look at game 1, how aggressive he was with his Gideon Jura. I liked it at the time, but it didn't pay off for him. He falls 2-0 to Brandon Smith. Not happy about it. But you know what? He can still join Legacy.
There you go. There you go. And I'm sure he's happy with his performance overall. It sounds like he really smashed the tournament yesterday. So
He tried. He tried today as well. He got 1 round in top 4. He's still qualified for the Titanium Finals. And as a result, we won't have the 3rd, 4th playoff to determine who qualifies. Brandon Smith automatically qualified. He's our first finalist. Also, battling for a spot in the finals is going to be Ben Reilly with his Cheerios. He's going to be playing against... What's he playing against, Gil?
He's going to be playing against it's going to be Cheerios versus Zoo. Smiley.
Oh, versus a Death Shadow deck.
nice.
So-
I'm gonna have to hear what Cheerios is.
Okay.
Is this the kind of the lineage of combo decks named after breakfast
It
cereals?
is. We're
That's
about, what was this, 20 years later? We're
love
still
it.
doing this? What was the original one? Was it Fruity Pebbles or was it something else?
Let's see. I mean, there was Fruity Pebbles. There was Full English Breakfast.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like Fruity Pebbles might have been the first.
Yeah, the Enduring Renewal Shield Sphere strategy. This one is different. This one still relies on 0 mana, do-nothing artifacts. Now, Ben Reilly's the only player in this entire area that I know who plays this deck. He's the only one, and he's played it at every single tournament I've ever seen him at. It's a blue-white deck, very low land count. It plays Pure Steel Paladin, which is a new Phyrexia card. Do you know it?
Yep.
Okay.
The 2 mana, 2/2 you can equip for 0.
Exactly. More importantly, though, than the equip for 0, when you play an equipment, you draw a card.
Okay.
New card from Kaladesh as well, SRAM, an artificer of some sort. When you play an equipment or an aura, you draw a card. So now they have 8 copies of a 2 mana creature that cantrip Bonesaw, basically.
Okay.
That cantrip Kite Shield and
Yeah.
Cathar Shield and all these goofy cards that are in every single penny bin at every single game store. So they try and draw their whole deck, or at least create a big chain. They then cast Retract. 1 blue
Okay.
mana, of course, return all your artifacts to your hand. Cast them all again, draw them all again. Backed up by Paradoxical Outcome, return all your 0 mana artifacts to your hand, replay them all, draw your deck. Finish, of course, with a Grape Shot, one of the only storm spells that's actually legal in Modern, to the face.
Wow.
It really has a lot of... It doesn't sound resilient, but it's really, really resilient and really good. Has a lot of play, a lot of backup. It's going to be really cool. I love seeing Ben's deck. I love seeing Ben play his deck masterfully. He's playing against a Death Shadows deck, so he's going to have to go fast. And for this match, I'm going to tag out. Dylan's going to tag in, and you're going to have to rely on him to explain to you the strange
All right.
planeswalkers of Modern.
There you go.
So Eric, it was a pleasure. To everyone at home, I'll be back.
This sounds like a fun one.
This is going to be...
That is great.
I have arrived.
All right.
I said I'd be back.
How's
Eric
it going?
Dupuy, nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
I am Dylan Plord. This is Eric Dupuy, and we have a top 4 match for the ages. We have one of our boys, Ben Reilly, on Cheerios. Fastest deck in Modern. Definitely fastest deck in Modern. And we have it versus a new variant of Death Shadow by Tom Smiley. Tom talked to us in the interview booth yesterday about how this deck is not his own creation. It's something that he's picked up. It won a number of major events recently. It's been churning online, and it definitely looks like it could possibly supplant Grixis Shadow as the best Death Shadow variant. Because it's just it's hyper efficient and it's attacking on a new axis, something people aren't prepared for yet. Because it's just the pressuring aggression of Wild Nacatls and Goblin Guides and Monastery Swift Spears, backed up by being able to just put yourself incredibly low via lightning bolting yourself with lands or even a lightning bolt. We witnessed Tom Smiley go end step lightning bolt me, play a Death Shadow, end step lightning bolt me, attack you for 9 at one point yesterday. So this is going to be a wild matchup.
Wow.
It's all about the removal. It is all about Tom Smiley drawing enough removal to be able to interact with the Pure Steel Paladin and the Shram on Ben's side of the board. Because if he can't, it's over in a blink.
That is very exciting.
All right. So let's see. What do we got here for the lists?
It looks like are these the lists from last round
Oh
here?
yes, these are not the. We don't have the list
they're
just
looking at
yet.
the list.
All right, so we'll have lists in a moment, but I can tell you about Ben's list. You've seen it on camera a few times. Just the whole game plan is just play a Shram on turn 2 or 3, or a Pure Steel Paladin. Both do the same thing, and then go 0 drop equipment, draw a card, 0 drop equipment, draw a card, 0 drop equipment, draw a card, and just keep drawing cards until you can play a Mox Opal, tap Mox Opal blue, retract, return all the 0 drop to his hand, continue to draw cards until he's able to play multiple Mox Opals in a turn, float red, and grape shot his opponent for 20 or more. Spectacular deck.
That is very fun.
It's-
Now, how much results has this been putting up? Because from the outside perspective, every time I hear about a combo deck in Modern, I feel like they should go ahead and get the tombstone ready for it. Like, how much results has this deck put up? Is it still kind of under the radar for most players, or is this something that people feel is kind of fair? It sounds very fast.
So this deck was a candidate for banning at one point. People were talking about how, oh, this deck is too powerful. It goes off consistently on turns 2 and 3. That's against the Modern rule. But the reality of this deck is, after the printing of Fatal Push, it got a lot worse. The whole combo all relies on being able to resolve one of the 2 creatures, Shram or Pure Steel Paladin, and stick it around for multiple sorcery speed effects. Any removals, literally any removal spell in Modern, will kill one of those 2 creatures and can disrupt the whole combo. And if the player can't find one of those, the game's just over. Their cards do nothing. So with the invent of Fatal Push into the format, things really warped around, and people saw that the deck is actually quite beatable. Is it good when it goes off? When it goes off, it looks insane. But when it doesn't, it looks horrible. So it's a very 50-50 deck. I don't think it's really worth banning. The worst they could do to it, I think, is probably the banning of Mox Opal, which would hit Affinity. But I don't think that's even necessary. The deck it has hot runs, it has cold runs, but it is not a dominant force in Modern. And some of the better decks that are currently being played in Modern, such as Death Shadow Zoo, Death Shadow Grixis, the Eldrazi deck even has numerous main deck answers for it, like Chalice of the Void. Just placing a Chalice of the Void on 0 can shut the entire deck down. There's no main board outs to that. So the deck is, I would say, a spectacular combo deck. Very good combo deck, but it has its downfalls. It has plenty of ways to interact with it.
Now, are any of these 0 mana equipments, do any of them have any upside at all? Like, I don't recall any. I feel like most of these are, for the most part, draft leave-ins.
The vast majority of them are simply buffs to the backside.
Okay.
So something that can be done though is, say you play out your Pure Steel Paladin. The Pure Steel Paladin has a very specific ability of, when you have Metalcraft, you can equip anything to it for free. So for 0 mana. So if you have a Pure Steel Paladin out and you slam a bunch of these, give your creature plus +3, give your creature plus +4 artifacts, you can then equip them all to the Pure Steel Paladin, and then it is bolt proof. It is everything but path and fatal push proof at that point. So it can survive a lot of burn-based removal, such as Searing Blaze, Rift Bolt, etc. And I've seen that be relevant before. But as we can see on camera, we have Thomas Smiley and Ben Reilly. They're ready for their game. And we have Ben Reilly starting off with a land and pass. Unfortunate thing for Ben Reilly in this matchup that he was talking to me about earlier is that a lot of the ways he gets his opponents is playing a turn 1 blue-white land into Searing Visions. And they assume, oh, he's on a control deck. Play a land tapped. Play a 1-drop. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. And then he's able to quickly get his opponent. Now, but as you see here, he goes first, plays land, plays second land on his second turn, and goes for the combo, but Tom Smiley has a bolt to interrupt it.
Breaks it up. He did draw a card off of it.
Yes, the Shram trigger is on cast, so he does still get a card off of this, this 0-drop. And now Tom going to try to apply some pressure with the Monastery Swift Spear. Attacks for 1. Puts Ben to 19.
And keeping, looks like the Lightning Bolt open to break up the combo again. This is going to be very difficult. He has to draw more creatures than he does. Oh, and we've got the other bolt.
Yeah.
Oh, the Dismember.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's
So
just
he
as
still
good
has
here.
another bolt.
Yeah, actually very good for Tom Smiley, because that takes him down to an even lower life total, allowing him to cast a Death Shadow even sooner here. And the unfortunate thing with Pure Steel Paladin being it is not a cast trigger, it is a enter the battlefield trigger. So with the equipment on stack, he was able to kill it and give Ben no value. Now that value can be recouped with a retract at some point, but it's not nearly as good. Alright, so Tom going fetching.
Death Shadow is activated. He can run that out whenever he likes now, and we'll stick around.
Very true. Very true. The really scary thing about these Death Shadow decks is just how low they put themselves, and how much the old guard strategies such as Bolt You, Snapcaster, Bolt You can just out of nowhere kill you. But in this matchup, not a problem. Ben is not putting pressure on him, and wow, that is quite good. So we see 2 Goblin Guide triggers here. One getting Ben a land, one just putting revealing one of his equipments on top of his deck. Ben draws that equipment. He's taking a pile of damage.
Now the shields are down.
And it's true.
There's no Lightning Bolt available here. We'll see if that ends up being wise. Is that the last card in his hand there? Is that a Lightning Bolt?
He has 1 card in his hand. I do not think it is a Lightning Bolt. I think he is just letting him have it if he has it. Okay, so... Ooh. Oh my. So this is a very new card. It was released quite recently. It returns all artifacts to Ben's hand. And he's going to go out again. And he's going to Grape Shot.
To clear the board.
Ooh.
Oh
Is
no,
that-
that's
oh,
9.
no.
No, that's
That's-
lethal.
that's 9.
That's
It's
lethal
9.
because he's already at 9.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Ben just naturally firing it off for lethal. That's spectacular. Yes, this is a new card that was released with Hour of Devastation. It does the same thing as Retract. Return all non-land permanents to your hand, I believe. Allowing Ben to go for the combo there.
That was absolutely brutal.
We
Has
saw-
the Singleton Grape Shot in his hand.
We saw Ben go for that that kind of combo against blue-white, where he was just sitting in a draw-go state, where he was just drawing, playing a 0-drop, drawing, playing a 0-drop, over and over and over again. And on a desperation turn, yesterday, Ben went just play 17 spells, try to Grape Shot you. But unfortunately, in that previous match, both of his Mox Opals, it was all 3 of his Mox Opals in that match were all countered by Cryptics and Negates. So he was not able to fire it off. But this time, at 9, just enough spells. So post board, Tom Smiley is going to be looking for one thing: more removal. That's all he cares about. He needs to kill these creatures. Ben, with a number of different sideboard cards for this matchup, one of which being Silence. Now, do you think Silence is a good bring-in this matchup? Because on the one hand, you are required to essentially have 3 mana or more, silence your opponent, play your creature, and then go off. And that's a little bit of setup, and it could potentially be dead. So I want to hear your opinions on this. What do you think?
It's tough for me to assess modern cards that have a legacy card that's strictly better. So like Orum's Chant sounds like it'd be interesting here because it could at least fog and buy you another turn as well. I think dragging the game out is what Silence would kind of, like, the game would have to progress to the point where you have all of that, and Silence doesn't help you get there. Whereas if you have like multiple Orum's Chants, you could like fog a couple turns and then have your setup. So from this perspective, it does seem like it's kind of magical Christmas land to get to the point where you can do both. That draw was so fast from the Death Shadow list, and really was having the Singleton Grape Shot in his hand that saved him.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the odds there?
Very, very low. Ben was incredibly lucky for that to work out in his favor, and Tom to put himself just low enough via fetches and shocks. Think about that. If Tom had just fetched a basic at any point there would have been no way for Ben to win. But he was pushing to his plan of being able to cast a large Death Shadow. So you gotta wonder, was it incorrect or was it still the right line?
Yeah, I'm very curious about this matchup. Death Shadow is a new card to me as a Legacy player. I did actually sleeve it up in Legacy this past week. There was a list that top-aided SCG recently. I wanted to kind of get some reps with the deck, so I didn't change it at all. And what was interesting to me was the fact that that deck functions very well without the Death Shadow. And it seems like Thomas's deck could function totally fine without it. I mean, we saw Goblin Guides, Swift Spear, and Wild Mikado come down there to provide a really fast clock, and there was really no reason for him to be taking any damage there, except for, of course, that Dismember. That Dismember was crucial, but in terms of all of the other lands, I mean, if he could get around taking the extra damage off of his mana base, if you don't have the Death Shadows in hand, I'm wondering in a matchup like this if that's the right play. It seems like that Grape Shot is just not going to be in his hand very often, and it should feel like you can just go for it, but man, it came up the other way for him there.
Yeah, it was a very interesting corner case, and I think Tom's line was correct, because so the thing with Tom's list is he gets a lot more than just the Death Shadow. So the Death Shadow allows him to go over the top of his smaller threats. He's able to apply a lot of good pressure with his 1-drops, but the Death Shadow can go over the top of those 1-drops where maybe they get swept away by an Anger of the Gods, maybe they get swept away by a Kozilek's Return, where the Death Shadow is just going to stick around when it comes down. It's going to be a 4/4, a 5/5, a 6/6, just a massive threat. And then also, being able to damage himself consistently means he can play 5 colors. He can play Might of Alar, he can play Tribal Flames, an incredibly good card. And it looks like we have the two players looking at their 7s. Tom's going to go down, and Ben is going to keep. This is very good for Ben. Ben's going to be on 8 cards after his draw, and that is definitely where he wants to be, just critical mass. So also, looking at the sideboards, in Ben's list, he has Echoing Truth, Lab Maniac, Noxious Revival, Silence, Path, Godless Shrine, and Collective Brutality. I think he definitely wants to bring in the Godless Shrine, the Collective Brutalities, and the Path to Exile. That seems like it would be exactly what he wants to do, because he gets a Collective Brutality, kill a Goblin Guide or Swift Spear, plus rip a removal spell out of your hand. Maybe even gain some life if he has an extra land that he doesn't want as well. And Path to Exile, I think, very important here. He needs to be able to interact with Tom's early pressure in order to still go off.
Yeah, Path to Exile, a good answer to really everything in his list. And it's no Swords to Plowshares versus Death Shadow. That is backbreaking in Legacy. That's one reason why I think the deck is likely to be better in Modern, is Swords to Plowshares, of course, giving you back all of that life. You don't want it. Like, you worked hard to get low, so your Death Shadow could be a really undercosted threat. and instead, it gets rid of that hard work. And if you had 2 Death Shadows out, it's a 2-for-1.
And in Modern, it's a very similar situation with Condemn. Condemn seeing a lot more play in blue-white X control decks recently because it does just that. It puts a Death Shadow to the bottom of their opponent's deck and then gains them life. Can sometimes get to a 2-for-1 in that way of going, put your Death Shadow on the bottom, your other Death Shadow dies based on state-based actions.
Yeah, and Goyf is likely to swing it back the other way too. If you have a 5/6 Goyf and he goes on the bottom, that's a lot of life to be gaining too. So yeah, there's a lot of undercosted threats in this zoo list. It looks very fun.
Yeah, looking over at the zoo sideboard, there's Grafdigger's Cage, Ancient Grudge, Pyroclasm, Collective Brutality, Gaddock Teague, Rise Fall, Stony Silence, and Thalia. I think Thalia is probably the in here. I don't think anything else in his sideboard is actually quite good. Thalia is spectacular, though. Thalia just shuts down Ben's combo, and it requires him to have an answer to it. So we saw a Smiley going for a turn 1 shock pass, just deal a little bit of damage to himself. Ben going for a fetch shock into a Serum Visions. The trick play. He's gotten many a player with that line of fetch, shock, Serum Visions, and then they think they're safe, but they're never safe. Top bottom. It looks to be that he has multiple Shrem effects in his hand, though. Plays a Mox Opal out and just passes the turn. That Mox Opal not online right now. Yes, there are 2 Shrams in Ben's hand right now. Tom goes down 2 points to 16 and plays out a Thalia. Ooh, this is what I was talking about.
That is
Thalia
going to
is
be brutal.
going to be very difficult for Ben to beat. So Shram pass. Shram not going to do much here. And Tom looking at a Tribal Flames, a Boros Charm, what looks like a Collective Brutality. He cannot cast his Collective Brutality here, but this Tribal Flames is for 3 right now. Coming with the Thalia, taking 2. So he's going to Tribal Flames there, having to pay an extra 1 under the Thalia. Thalia is asymmetric.
Looks like we've got a Retract, another Mox Opal,
And a few 0-drop equipments. One of them being a Paradise Mantle, which can create more mana. Alright, so Ben pays 1 mana. Draws a card.
One more artifact here, and we've got Metal Crafts. So that unlocks Mox Opal and can make our guy a Bird of Paradise.
Yeah, draw another card. A lot of retracts in Ben Reilly's hand, but he is strangled on mana at the moment. Just has to pass back.
Is that an Echoing Truth in his hand?
I don't think so. I believe he just has 3 retract. That is an Echoing Truth. Yes. So what he needs to do is end step off an Echoing Truth to get the Thalia back into Tom's hand, and then he can go off. Because with the multiple retracts in his hand, it is assuredly end of the game if he can do that. All right, so, yep. So
the question will be, does he try and protect it by giving it a bigger backside?
The problem with that, though, is Shram is not Pure Steel Paladin, so he can
pay like 3.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
He's just going for it.
He's just gonna go for it here. Put that back in your hand. And I'm gonna try to go off.
Yeah, this should be it. Multiple retracts.
Yeah, I don't see a
Just
way
needs
that
a land.
Ben doesn't go off here. Well, he has a Mox Opal. That's enough. He just needs to play the Mox Opal, sacrifice the other Mox Opal, and then he can retract it all back to his hand, and then continue going. Plays Mox Opal. He's going to retract everything back. He'll draw another 5 cards here.
And another retract.
Another retract. Yep. Just the hits keep coming here.
And he got his other lands. This is...
Yeah, this is... Ooh. And he keeps drawing 0 drops off the top, too. That's so good. Alright, so that's it. So, another retract. Tom's still staring him down here. Not willing to scoop him up. There is the very minute possibility that Ben does not go off. That he bricks at some point. If Ben cannot find Grape Shot plus second Mox Opal, he can brick here. Found a paradoxical outcome. Mox Opal into the third retract.
It's a lot of cards to be drawing from the other side of the table. You can just sit back.
Part 1, Grape Shot.
Yeah, and he has that basic land already. He can Mox Opal whenever he feels the storm count is sufficient.
Oh yes, he just had a land anyway. So that is 2-0 for Ben Reilly. Ben Reilly moves on to the finals, beating Thomas Smiley. The day's not over for Thomas Smiley, though. Thomas Smiley is signed up for the legacy portion because he gets a buy into it. So Thomas Smiley will be playing legacy. We will probably see him on coverage at some point. But Ben Reilly moves on to the finals. Good on Ben.
I'll be interested to see what Thomas is playing in Legacy, see if he has a deck that's a similar style, because that deck certainly went for the throat.
I actually, I have a little bit of inside information on that. He is playing a Bant deck.
Wow.
I believe it is a Bant sword deck. So that'll be quite interesting to see.
Yeah, a little bit of a different play style.
It's definitely a lot different. It's far more mid-rangey. Not the amount of pressure he was putting on in this match, but we will see how that works out for him. I wish him the best in his next event. But yeah, so that was the top 4. We'll be moving on to the finals quite soon. Let's see. Take a quick look at these.
Well, we get to see more of that combo deck, so I'm excited.
Oh yeah, that's Ben's deck. So good, so fun to watch, and a really deserving player. Really, he's been at pretty much every TJ's Titanium Series event. I don't think there's been one event I've come to where he was not also present.
Well, that's really great to hear. People really supporting TJ's and